Welcome to the Janelle King Show. For those of you that are joining me for the first time at our new time, 5 p.m. right here on Extra 106.3, I'm Janelle King, and this is the Janelle King Show. This is where we discuss kitchen table topics that are typically banned from family gatherings, but are absolutely necessary in order to have a strong republic. And today's kitchen table topic is no shorts of any of the other topics. They are definitely banned from the kitchen table. We're talking about Georgia ICE raids. We're talking about executive orders, and we're talking about rolling out my new series called Detoxing Feminism. Jam-packed show here, and we're kicking off our new segment discussing what is happening here on the ground. So I'm doing current events in the beginning of the show now so that we can touch base on some of these topics. And to be quite frank with you, I got some things to say. I have some things to say. So I want to touch on some of those current topics. So we'll definitely be breaking all of that down, as well as finishing our breakdown on Trump's most recent executive orders that I believe are impacting you directly today. So much to discuss. So let's get started. I want to kick off the current event segment talking about these ICE raids. Last week, I discussed what was happening nationally while breaking down his immigration executive orders. So President Trump dropped the immigration executive order. I went through what that is, what that means, all that good stuff. So check out last week's episode if you want to hear about the executive order. But the recent ICE operation across Georgia has sparked both praise as well as concern from Republicans and Democrats. Mostly concern coming from Democrats and praise coming from the Republicans. So it's very, very split ideologically, particularly in districts where there are large immigrant populations. Some lawmakers, like House Speaker John Burns, supports the operation, stating that they fulfill President Trump's mandate to crack down on illegal immigration and enhancing cooperation between law enforcement and ICE. There are federal agents that have arrested individuals accused of being in the country illegally. And I hate the word accused because it's not something that you have to accuse someone of. You can prove whether or not a person is a citizen. You can do it fairly quickly. So the way the media writes these things is kind of tricky. But the truth of the matter is we're not accusing them of being illegal. These people are in the country illegal. Anyway, with the specific incidents captured on DoorCam videos, raising fear amongst Caribbean and African immigrant communities regarding potential deportation. The operations have led to concerns that churches, schools are no longer safe to consider safe places for asylum seekers. They were never safe, guys. These are not asylum seekers that are going through the normal asylum process. These are people that are jumping across our border, embedding themselves in our schools, embedding themselves in our churches, and then they're as a means of hiding themselves. So this is not asylum seekers. Anyway, State Senator Blake Tillery introduced a bill allowing individuals to sue sheriffs and jailers who fail to report undocumented immigrants in their custody of federal agents. Democrats, including Smyrna lawmaker Gabriel Sanchez and Lawrenceville Democrat Sam Park, criticized the operations, arguing they instill fear in all immigrant communities, regardless of their legal status, and that most immigrants contribute positively without committing crimes. Okay, first of all, of the hundreds that have already been rounded up, they are committing crimes, most of them. Now, obviously, there are people that are being arrested that are within proximity of those who are committing crimes. But I would venture to say that you are housing and abetting a criminal. So if you are living in the house with someone that you know is a part of MS-13 and you are keep giving them shelter and food, you're part of the problem. So anyway, so what's happening is they're going after the people who are currently either in prisons, people who are living in communities that have records. They're finding these people and they're rounding them up. We haven't even gotten to the phase where we're really starting to target people who are just here illegally. He's targeting criminals. So saying that these are people that are contributing positively, first of all, how can they contribute positively when they're not a citizen? They may be contributing positive to you, but how are they contributing to the country when you're not a citizen? jumping across the border and providing people with some type of comforts while they're here is not compassion, not at all. So we got to stop that too. Anyway, just had to pause because I feel like the rhetoric is just so frustrating. It's like, and when they keep pushing this idea that somehow ICE officials can't tell the difference between who's illegal and who isn't, it is extremely racist. It's racist. Because that would mean that I, as a Black woman, should be afraid that I may accidentally be deported back to Africa simply because I look African and I am a legal citizen. So they may honestly make a mistake and think that I'm illegal because I'm Black. Like, this is where how silly, how misguided, and how manipulative that messaging is. Also, again, having compassion for these people who are being deported doesn't require, or it shouldn't require, me to also support breaking the law. The moment you tell me that I am somehow not having compassion simply because I'm choosing to support the law, I'm choosing to say when these people are doing wrong is a problem for me. It's a problem for me. Anyway, moving on. Let's see. Continuing the story as they wrote it. Okay, back to the story. All right. Speaker Burns, our Speaker of the House, believes that cracking down on these on immigration or illegal immigration will not lead to impacting us negatively, or a negative impact, so to speak, on Georgia's agriculture industry, which relies on migrant workers, insisting that those involved are doing it legally. And of course they have to be doing it legally, or they're supposed to be doing it legally. Are they not? I'm pretty sure there are some that are hiring people that are not legal. But the point of the matter is that doesn't matter. What matters is that we are following the law, that we are doing what's right. And so to say that, if we don't allow these immigrants to break our laws, then we won't have enough people to work in our field. Again, it's giving something else, and it's concerning, because you're basically saying that they are somehow above the law as long as they can help you produce. Come on, guys, we got to do better. We got to do better. So I want to share a little bit more information on this issue, and I'm going to let you eavesdrop on a conversation that I heard on the John Frederick show. Actually, shout out to my girl, Marcy McCarthy, who's the Georgia DeKalb County GOP chairwoman. She's doing a great job, who invited me to listen in on this conversation, and it was really good.
I also want to kind of bring up what's also happening here in Hotlanta, specifically in like DeKalb. We have ICE doing raids overall, and it is completely putting the Democrats' hair on fire. And with like Chambly's mayor putting out a statement with instructions on how to avoid ICE. And we have our Brookhaven, where I live, mayor and city council saying that, the Beaufort Highway corridor is like a love fest of places where it's really 90% of the crime in our Chambly and Brookhaven area in DeKalb. So the fact of the matter is the folks aren't listening to us out there, but we are making a difference. And I have to say, doesn't everybody love winning every single day? I mean, yes.
Coming up, more executive orders. We're talking about the executive order to protect our children from chemical and surgical mutilation. We're talking about the Iron Dome for America. Woo, yes. Elon's Doge, the Department of Efficiency, and going back to in-person work, returning back to in-person work. And then we're going to close the show with a snippet of my new series, Detoxing Feminism. All of this is coming up on The Janelle King Show. You're listening to Extra 106.3.
Hello, everyone. My name is Suzanne Guy, and this is the Church's Moment. There is an incredible opportunity to start a distinct pro-life ministry at your church. We started one at our church about 5 years ago, and the fruit has been tangibly beautiful. We do monthly meetings that educate and equip the body of believers on sanctity of human life issues from womb to tomb by bringing in and featuring different pro-life leaders from all over Georgia, as well as featuring different ministries like post-abortion healing ministries or foster care ministries. There are so many great community partners out there. And then the second part of this pro-life ministry is having a care team. This is an opportunity to show moms in crisis, moms in unplanned, unwanted, or crisis pregnancies, that the church is the place to run to, that the church is a safe haven and a place to go for tangible help, real hope, true compassion, friendship, and discipleship, and yes, an opportunity to share the gospel in both word and deed. Brothers and sisters in Christ, will you consider starting a distinct pro-life ministry at your church? It's so easy. Please contact me today to find out how simple this is. You can contact me at my email, proverbs31:8@att.net. This is the church's moment.
Attention Georgia residents, join me, Janelle King, on February 4th from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. for the Urban and Metro Communities Policy Dialogue with your Lieutenant Governor, Burt Jones. This isn't just another event. It's a unique opportunity to engage directly with the Lieutenant Governor and discuss the policies that impact your community. Best of all, it's free. RSVP and submit your question for the Lieutenant Governor. Bring a friend or two and be a part of the conversation. It's all happening February 4th from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the Gathering Place Community Center located in Union City, Georgia. Visit us at lwfaa.com/policy dialogue to RSVP or check out the link in the description box. See you there. Welcome back to the Janelle King Show right here on Extra 106.3. And I'm Janelle King for those of you that are joining me for the first time at our new time, 5 p.m. on Saturdays. This is where we discuss kitchen table topics that are typically banned from family gatherings, but are absolutely necessary in order to have a strong republic. And today's table topic is no different. We're talking about ICE raids, which we did talk about in the first segment. So if you missed that, don't you worry, you can go back and check that out. And in this segment, we're going to close out our part 2 of the executive orders. I'm going to go through a couple of executive orders that are hitting the table. And then lastly, we're going to finalize the show with my snippet of a new series called Detoxing Feminism. And before the break, as I stated, we discussed the Georgia raids. So check out my YouTube page for the full show. Remember, while you're there, to like, comment, share, subscribe, do all the things, because that's what I need. It is free to you. And then don't forget, we have encore episodes that air of this radio show right here on Extra 106.3 every Sunday at 9 a.m. So while you're driving to church, you can be listening to me. This segment is dedicated to part 2 of our executive order review, where I am reviewing orders recently signed that I feel may pose an immediate impact. And I'm just keeping you in the loop. So let's start. So Trump's executive order introduced a significant change to federal employees, primarily requiring all federal workers to return to in-person work full time. This move marks a shift from remote work practices and became prevalent during the COVID-19 pandemic and is aimed at increasing accountability and presence with federal agencies. Now, accountability, in my opinion, is super duper important. And when you have every dollar that is being spent is paid for by or with tax dollars, I think that's a problem. I think that's a problem when we don't have efficiency or accountability in our government and you're using tax dollars. And some may say there is accountability, there is efficiency, but it depends on who you ask. Because for my husband and my son, who are both veterans, they had to wait 7 months to get an appointment with the VA. I'm listening to the VA calling and saying, hey, I know it's time for your annual. And mind you, he's calling us in January saying it's time for you to come and do an annual review. And Kelvin's like, okay, so when? And they're like, October of this year. Okay. All right. That's not efficiency. Anyway, so there's been much criticism. Many are wondering what this means for those who are hired remotely and live in different states. Well, President Trump is offering a $2 million offering 2 million federal employees 8 months paid to quit their jobs as part of the plan to reduce the size of the U.S. government. Employees have until February 6th to accept the offer, which excludes immigration and national security positions, as stated by the Office of Personnel and Management. The National Treasury Employees Union warned that the offer is designed to scare employees into resigning and urge them not to accept it. Well, that's dumb. That's dumb. Why would you tell them not to accept this offer? If they are unable or unwilling to relocate, then you better accept the offer. It's so emotional. I promise you, man. I just, and why are we advocating to keep government so big? I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it. I just can't. And keep people we can't afford. Democratic thinking. Speaking of democratic thinking, Democrat Senator Tim Kaine criticized the proposal as a fake offer, questioning Trump's authority to make such an offer and promise payouts. Look, I know it is extremely weird for Democrats to see a president that's actually exercising their authority, because what I've dealt with coming from Democrat leadership is a constant, repeated no to everything. I sit on the state election board here in Georgia, and it seems like every idea that comes before the board, the Democrats are always like, oh, it's out of our authority. Oh, we can't do it. Oh, let's throw more red tape on it. Oh, let's send it back through the bureaucracy. Like, let's make it more difficult. It's never, all right, guys, let's work together and see how we can make this happen. It's always a criticism, and it's always an unfounded criticism that we have to somehow take as fact simply because they said it. That's a problem for me. So I get it. Biden was so quiet in the White House because he was doing absolutely nothing, being controlled by everybody else. And I really wish Dems would start to look for solutions rather than criticisms, even though I know they're not accustomed to all of this movement. I know it feels very weird. But anyway, moving on. I digress. When it comes to the in-person stuff, I'm someone who has worked a 9-to-5 for a number of years. However, for the past 12 to 13 years, I've been self-employed. So I've been working for myself more as a consultant and doing that type of work. Now, my husband has been self-employed as well for 10 years, but he built a company. So I was doing more freelance and doing consulting work and doing events and things of that nature, whereas he built the company where he has like a bunch of employees. I don't have any employees, but I can tell you, working from home is a lot easier as it relates to time. However, it doesn't mean that you're going to be more productive. And for most people that have to manage their own time during work hours, not as you think. When you start the coffee, the lunch with friends that ran over, and the list of other distractions that come because you're at home, right? I have the dog, I got the deliveries coming. There's so many different things that's happening while you're at home, and then that will impact your time, and all of that adds up. And the next thing you know, instead of you working 8 hours from home, you're actually working 6 hours from home. So productivity is a problem. But there's also the reverse that's true that could happen as well, where you do have a lot of self-starters who work better in silence, and they may be people who can benefit from that, but it's just not most of us. It's just not most. So unfortunately, this is not the majority, but it's a situation where I do believe that we may be running into a productivity issue, particularly when we already have challenges with our government as it is. Continuing on, this order also establishes the Department of Government Efficiency under the Executive Office of the President to operate until July 4th, 2026. Now, I love that this agency has an end date because that was a concern for my husband. He was like, well, we're creating this, but is this going to create more government, right? Like we're letting people go while we're also expanding. That was a little bit, he had some concerns about that. And I did too. So I love that there is an end date to this. So just so you know, this is not creating a new department or agency that's going to be with us for the next 5 decades, like we have some of these other agencies, like the Department of Education. But anyway, it's more so he's sending them in to clean it up and then get out. right? So that's the way it's supposed to be. This department is led by Elon Musk, who is tasked with recommending cuts to federal programs and spending, reflecting on a focus to reduce government expenditures, meaning how much money we are spending versus bringing in. Additionally, the executive order mandates the creation of a federal hiring plan within 120 days, which will set all new standards for hiring federal workers. This plan emphasizes the recruitment of individuals who are passionate about the ideals of the American Republic and seeks to prevent hiring based on race, sex, or religion. The other aims to block the hiring of individuals deemed unwilling to defend the Constitution or faithfully serve in the executive branch. If I could add something, I would add, let's hire people that have a compassion for people. Right? I feel like what we run into when it comes to federal workers is that their jobs are just so secure and they're so rude and disrespectful to people. It's like the worst experience. So I want to see some customer service skills increasing as well. But no more going rogue and holding the administration hostage like the squad did with the Democrat Party. So now we're no longer going to be forced to have to make the hiring decisions based on whatever standard the society comes up with. The order allows department heads discretion to grant exemptions for certain circumstances. Some are saying this approach politicizes the civil service and undermines due process rights, raising concerns about fairness and objectivity in federal hiring practices. Okay, wait a minute. So the Democrats are concerned this is going to create discriminatory practices. Where was all of this when DEI was created? And it was taking all these slots from Asian children so they couldn't go to school, and white children who are qualified, but sorry, these slots are reserved for the Black kids. Or sorry, this slot's reserved for the body positivity people. Sorry, this slot is reserved for the non-binaries. I mean, is that not discriminatory practices? Okay. Or what about when the trans community decided they wanted to compete against girls? And how about the deafening silence that we heard when that trans boxer nearly knocked the head off of a female boxer during the boxing match? Yeah, they were silent. And in some cases, they were even opposing the stance. And this is why I believe that Democrats are being ignored right now. This is why. All right, up next, America's new Iron Dome. Trump dropped an executive order that highlights the ongoing threat of ballistic, hypersonic, and cruise missiles, emphasizing the need for an effective defense system for national security. Yes, 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 yes. Let me tell you. So many of you know, and to all my new listeners, my husband is a former Air Force officer. And many of his friends are currently high-ranking officials in the military. And he's also my husband's also a part of an organization called Business Executives for National Security. And I can tell you that I hear these conversations. And I can tell you that this hypersonic missile has been discussed at our home because it has been a concern. I've overheard my husband kind of like having these conversations and with some of his friends. And this is a major threat that is a concern because China was able to produce this missile, and this missile can shoot around the globe, in some cases, not even being detected. So Trump is absolutely right. And we have to strengthen our defenses, particularly now when it seems like emotions are really, really heightened due to what's happening in Israel and with Hamas and the money that was sent over there. We really do need to pay attention to what's happening. The order references past efforts, including President Ronald Reagan's initiative, and notes that increasing complexity of threats from peer and let me start this over. The order references past efforts, including President Ronald Reagan's initiatives, and notes the increasing complexity of threats from peer and near peer adversaries from over the past 40 years. So some of the policy directives that come with this executive order is that the United States will deploy and maintain a next generation missile defense shield. The U.S. aims to deter and defend against foreign aerial attacks targeting the homeland. Assurance of a secure second strike capability is prioritized as well. Within 60 days, the Secretary of Defense must submit a comprehensive plan that includes defense strategies against advanced aerial threats, acceleration of deploying the hypersonic and ballistic tracking space sensor layer, development of space-based interceptors for boost phase interception, creation of capabilities to defeat missile attacks before launch. I want to talk about this really quickly. When I went to Israel, we met with someone in their national defense, and they talked about their dome. And what I didn't realize was that when Israel is protecting itself from missiles, typically this is what happens. They either allow the missile to land if it's going to land in an open area where there aren't any people, so they don't have to waste their missiles, or they send out their defense, their missile defense, and that it's literally like two bullets having to hit each other in a head-on collision. That's how precise Israel's Iron Dome is. And I would love to see something like that here. Now, I know we have a lot of protections. I mean, America is safe, right? We have a lot of nuclear weapons. Like we're strong. But it doesn't hurt to have a stronger defense. A plan to fund the directives will be submitted to the president in collaboration with the Office of Management and Budget in time for consideration in the fiscal year of 2026 budget. The order calls for an updated assessment of the strategic missile threat to the U.S. homeland and a prioritized list of defense locations against potential nuclear attacks. The U.S. will continue to collaborate with allies on missile defense initiatives aiming to improve and accelerate missile defense capabilities for both the U.S. and allied forces. The order clarifies that it does not impair existing authorities and must be implemented in accordance with the law, the applied law, and available appropriations, meaning we got to have the money. The executive order underscores the U.S. commitment to enhancing its missile defense capabilities amidst evolving security threats while collaborating with allies for a collective defense approach. There you have it. So, as you can see, there's a lot going on with our national security and our defense, and I love it all. So let's discuss one more before we go to the break. And it's protecting children from chemical and surgical mutilation. Can I believe this is being discussed? And let me tell you something. I am loving the transparency coming from this White House because I am on an email list where I get these executive orders. So he sends out a press release and with like all the details of it. So I don't have to be confused about whatever the media is saying. And I'm so grateful. So as I'm going to be dropping a couple of executive orders and doing more reviews throughout the show, or throughout the coming weeks, I should say, as they come in. So what I get, I'm going to share with you all. So, okay, this executive order aims to revoke the practice of what is termed chemical and surgical mutilation of children. It contends that the notion that adults can change a child's sex through irreversible medical interventions is misleading and harmful. The order emphasizes that countless children may come to regret being subjected to these irreversible medical interventions, stressing the potential consequences that could affect their ability to conceive or breastfeed. It explicitly states that the U.S. government will not fund, sponsor, or support the so-called transition of a child from one sex to another, enforcing laws prohibiting and limiting these life-altering procedures. Praise God. This executive order directs agencies to rescind and amend policies based on guidance from the World Professional Association of Transgender Health. I have no clue what that is, but WPATH is what they call themselves, citing concerns with its scientific integrity. The order requires the heads of executive departments to ensure that institutions receiving federal research or education grants in the chemical and surgical mutilation of children. The Secretary of Health and Human Services, which I hope is going to be RFK Jr. By the time you're listening to this, we would know, is instructed to take appropriate actions to end these practices and improve data quality to guide health practices for children experiencing gender dysphoria. The Department of Defense is directed to commence rulemaking to exclude coverage for chemical and surgical mutilation of children from TRICARE affecting military families. The director of the Office of Personnel and Management shall ensure that federal employee health plans prohibit coverage for pediatric transgender surgeries and hormone treatments. The Attorney General is tasked with reviewing and prioritizing investigations into deceptive practices related to these medical interventions, ensuring enforcement against abusive practices, especially in sanctuary states. Child, we are beyond cities. Okay. Sanctuary states, but okay. Within 60 days of the order, agency heads with responsibilities must submit a report detailing progress on implementing the order and a timeline for future action. Finally, this order clarifies that it does not create any new rights or benefits enforceable against the United States or its agencies. Whew, thank you, God. Thank you, God. It's sad that we are here. It really is. It really is. I feel for the babies. I feel for the children that are subjected to this without them or they're without them knowing exactly what they really want. I have 2 degrees in psychology, and one is general psychology and the other is industrial and organizational psychology, which is my master's. But I remember being in undergrad, and we had our DSM, and that's the book that you kind of go to diagnose. And I remember seeing body dysmorphia as a true, like, it's a medical condition. And I cannot imagine stepping in front of the mirror and seeing myself as a boy when I'm really a girl. And I really do think that there is a lot of compassion that's being lost in this conversation because it's being misconstrued. It's not compassion to tell the person looking in the mirror that you are what you see in the mirror when the entire world sees them as what they are. That's not fair. That's not compassion. And I have a problem with that because it hurts people. So let's get back to telling the truth. Let's get back to doing real therapy so that we can really help people. After the break, I'm introducing my new series. I'm so excited. That will be on my YouTube page. So the full series will be on my YouTube page. But I'm going to give you a little snippet of Detoxing Feminism. We'll be right back. Attention Georgia residents, join me, Janelle King, on February 4th from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. for the Urban and Metro Communities Policy Dialogue with your Lieutenant Governor, Burt Jones. This isn't just another event. It's a unique opportunity to engage directly with the Lieutenant Governor and discuss the policies that impact your community. Best of all, it's free. RSVP and submit your question for the Lieutenant Governor. Bring a friend or two and be a part of the conversation. It's all happening February 4th from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the Gathering Place Community Center located in Union City, Georgia. Visit us at lwfaa.com/policy dialogue to RSVP or check out the link in the description box. See you there. Welcome back to the Janelle King Show. I'm Janelle King. This is Extra 106.3. And this is where we discuss kitchen table topics that are typically banned from family gatherings, but are absolutely necessary in order to have a strong republic. Now you will hear a snippet of my new series, Detoxing Feminism. In society, we often undermine the qualities that defined us as women, promoting superficial images that lead to feelings of inadequacy. Feminism tells us all that we are not without celebrating who we are. I'm Janelle King. You may know me from Fox News, CNN, or the Georgia Gang, but I want to connect with you on a deeper level through this podcast. Over the past 3 years, I've embarked on a journey of personal self-discovery, confronting parts of me that quite frankly needed to be confronted. By leaning in on the wisdom of older women, engaging in tough conversations, and spending time with God, this has led me to discover a mental framework that has served as a filter for making life choices. And unfortunately, my filter was heavily influenced by feminist ideology, and I had no idea. Feminism has existed for many years, taking different shapes and forms as generations change. It spews rhetoric that is harmful more than helpful. We are not just a core in our families. We are not in competition with men, and we're certainly not judging all men through the lens of a few bad experiences. We are powerful expressions of strength through service, essential to our communities. And while I don't have all the answers, I invite you to join me on a journey to confront uncomfortable truths and uncover important values that make the female species a force. Welcome to Detoxing Feminism. As I begun my detoxing journey, I had to start with the origin story of feminism. And in conducting my research, I immediately went to the phase of feminism that has the most impact on me, albeit negatively. I didn't think it was wise to start there. Because if I'm going to truly uncover the wicked nature behind this movement, I need to understand how it all started. So let's discuss the first phase of feminism in this series. The first wave of feminism takes place between the late 19th and early 20th century, particularly focusing on the women's suffrage movement and the ramifications of that period. The first wave emerged after the Civil War. Now, during the time when the nation was coping with significant loss of lives, with right around 620,000 to 750,000 men lost their lives, the equivalent is approximately 7 million today. So imagine losing 7 million men today in one war. That's what happened during the Civil War. And the focus should have been on rebuilding the nation as a whole. But this was a period of time when we see the rise of capitalism, which created a wealth divide due to many taking advantage of these great opportunities. Literally, this was a time when corporate laws and regulations were really relaxed. And if you had a product or service, you could become successful virtually off of just pushing your product and service. There wasn't much regulation. This was a time when the era was also known as the Golden Age, which I hope we're living in right now too. But anyway, but this is when most entrepreneurs were able to create freely. And this is how the American dream was born during this time period. This is a time when the railroad industry was born and the Brooklyn Bridge was built, along with the Statue of Liberty. While many were succeeding, there were many who felt like the Golden Age was more like fool's gold, thus the term Gilded Age, which gilded generally means covered thinly with gold leaf or gold paint. Metaphorically, it refers to something that appears attractive or valuable on surface or face value, but it may be deceptive or lacking substance underneath. Thus, the phrase the Gilded Age, which characterized a rapid economic growth, industrialization, and a great disparity between the wealthy elite and the poor, suggesting a society that was full of glitter and prosperity on the outside, but riddled with corruption and social issues underneath. For many, now that slavery was abolished due to the North winning the Civil War, 4 million Black Americans were now freed. Now let's keep this in perspective. America brought over around 400,000, I believe it was, slaves. But over time, we multiplied, and it ended up being 4 million slaves who were freed after the Civil War. And the notion of prioritizing women's suffrage was arguably a distraction from the more pressing issues like racial equality and national unity. But there were plenty of middle-class women who felt that there were equally pressing issues. So how did we get here? When the men went away to fight in the war, there was still a need to keep everyday life moving. So many of the women that were at home began to step into the workforce, which altered the traditional family dynamics. Key figures like Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony are often heralded as champions of women's rights. But their focus on suffrage did not include Black women or women of lower socioeconomic backgrounds. But this didn't stop their movement from forming or attending the Seneca Falls Convention, which was held in July on the 19th through the 20th in 1848 in Seneca Falls, New York. I hope you enjoyed that snippet. You can watch the entire series right now on my YouTube page. I hope you enjoyed the show. Welcome to all of my new listeners. Until next week, stay unafraid, stay unapologetic, and never stop seeking the truth.